According to IMF surveys, women in sub-Saharan Africa continues to struggle to secure employment in the corporate world due to limitations such as education, gender discrimination, sexual harassment, and cultural norms. Although progress has been made in some firms, women are less represented in management. The Brookings Institute reports that women make up 43% of those who receive post-secondary degrees, yet hold only 28% of professional jobs, especially on the continent. Despite being qualified, it doesn't mean women easily climb the corporate ladder. I'm Oriani Tangashaka with my co-hosts Jean Niwa and Sine Yakoye. This week on Our Voices, we'll discuss women's journey to secure gainful employment in the formal sector, especially at the executive level, the challenges they face, as well as possible solutions. Hello, ladies.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today? Good. Talking about getting up, right?
Yeah, the ladder.
Well, do you think, ladies, because of maybe religious beliefs and cultural norms on the continent, it's something that's continuing to keep women from getting into professional positions as well as executive positions on the continent?
I think we're more used to seeing women maybe in professional position, but when it comes to leadership, it's a different fight. Yeah, I think some skills are always associated with men. Anything that's related to force negotiation, we tend to
think that that's for men only.
Yeah, you tend to see more
what do you think?
I also think a lot has changed since women starting in the workforce. But I mean, despite the progress, traditional biases still continue to hold back, and especially when it comes, as Jenny said, when it comes to senior or leadership positions or even corporate jobs. I'm sure our guys later will explain better, but in my view, I think maybe it has to do with, family narrative. Are still seen as responsible for taking care of children, family, and yet, so because of that, corporates don't really want to go for them. And, especially a man can just pack and travel anytime, any day, right? But a woman has to plan ahead because there are a lot of, she's multitasking in her life. It's also, she could be pregnant, she could be breastfeeding, and,
they see that as a hindrance.
Exactly. I think those things are still held against them by corporate when it comes to hiring.
To some degree, I think they're justified. If you're just looking at the profit margin, those things are going to play a part, right? But I think also in the home, men probably also don't want their wives being out in the corporate world where they know that there's going to be sexual harassment. They don't want their wives to be out there. And I think sometimes that also play a part because, as we said, the cultural norms and the religious norm also are still playing part in the decisions for women to be in the professional settings. I think also the culture that says that men should be the man breadwinners. The dowry ceremony that says that you better provide for her. So in that back of their mind, I'm the one who's supposed to bring in the money. So I think that
mentality also. And we are going to further discuss this. Let's begin in Nigeria, where for millions of women, job hunting can expose them to discrimination or even sexual harassment in exchange for favors. Nigerian women make up nearly 50% of the country's total population, but women are underrepresented in formal sector jobs. Analysts say cultural norms and religious bias still play a role today. But in this report, Timothy Obizu tells the story of a woman empowering many others to be independent.
In March, Ruth received the news she was hoping for. She'd been invited for a job interview after a successful application process. But she says during the meeting, the recruiter made sexual advances at her.
He gave me a date that we can meet up so place. I shouldn't bother looking for a job anywhere else again. He said that that won't be a problem. If I can just comply, that I'll get benefits, weekly allowance, tuition fee, salary. And the salary was very attractive.
Stephen refused the bait and lost the opportunity.
I thought about it and I was like, if I should give in, definitely to continue. I wouldn't want that because
Nigerian likely to be unemployed their male counterpart, according to Enhanced Financial Innovation Access Survey released in 2020. The report said women are underrepresented in formal sector jobs requiring high education and specialized skills. Last year, the World Bank said female participation in the labor force was 51% compared to 65% for men. Experts say patriarchal, cultural, and religious norms play a role.
Here in Nigeria specifically, we still have a lot of socio-cultural, how would I put it, socio-cultural practices, beliefs, ideologies, inherent views, certain persons.
But that's not the only problem. Women are more likely to experience sexual harassment at work. The non-profit Stand to End Rape initiative promoting women's rights say 85% of victims of workplace sexual harassment are women. It affects productivity. Is driving more women towards informal sector business. Henrietta is one of them. She started the Fashion Academy 6 years ago to help women and girls learn new skills at low costs. And she often awards scholarships to underprivileged girls who cannot afford to pay.
That the society that we live in now, people tend to focus on the male part when it comes to job and stuff. They feel the woman is supposed to be in the kitchen and all. But no, it's different now. The world has evolved. It has gone beyond how it used to be.
Ebube Onmara joined the academy in 2021 and says the training is paying off.
We were not financially buoyant at the time. She offered me a scholarship, which was amazing. It was more than a scholarship. I have overstayed my time in the school. I learned, not just how to sew, how to treat your customers, how to run a business.
While many women like Stephen hope to work in a safe environment, Adaji will be making sure many more women find a safe space to learn and earn. Ifi Obiezu, News, Abuja, Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Timothy, for giving us a glimpse of how it is in Nigeria. Well, to discuss more about how and why women still have challenges in securing the professional and executive level job they desire, we've invited Ms. Boniwe Dunster, founder and director of Blue Eagle Human Capital Practice, LLC. She has 15-year experience in human resources and helps people to simplify the HR concept for job seekers. Ms. Dunster, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great and looking forward to this conversation.
Great.
Ms. Dunster, let me ask you the first question. So when it comes to hiring women and preparing them for professional jobs, what kind of qualifications do they sell first? Do they sell experience or qualification? Which ways in a hiring process?
Sure. So oftentimes you will have a job description that outlines what the requirements are, but you find that females, often want them to meet 100% of the requirements. They would expect them to have the experience and then to have a qualification. Oftentimes, because women are hard workers, they would actually have the qualification, but then they would actually lack the experience in the industry or in the market that they are looking for. So, however, they need to actually try to find a balance between the experience and the qualification. But one thing that really disadvantages them is not having the experience that is required or the number of years that is required.
Ms. Dunster, when it comes to resume, is there words or attitudes that women tend to have on their resume that can turn off recruiters?
I think what often happens is that people do not really get to articulate what they're capable of. They hold back from having, to share what their successes have been, the achievements that they have, and that often holds them back. Versus our male counterparts who would proudly put their achievements out there, put the matrix as well, and even if they don't meet 100% requirements and meet only 60%, they would still go ahead and apply. So our female counterparts need to actually make sure that they put their best foot forward and they also advocate for their work. They mustn't hold back and be modest, which is one thing that we see in their CVs. They would just write a job descriptor, but not be explicit in terms of what they are doing, not supporting their work with matrix that would actually make their resumes attractive in the eye of the recruiter or hiring manager.
That's awesome. It's definitely true when we look at being humble and, you know, try not to be too pushy. But what can women do to do self-assessment of those kind of issues that we have that we need to correct? How can they do a self-assessment?
Sure. I often encourage women to seek mentorship opportunities and coaching opportunities so that they are able to advance their career. It is important for you to also build a social network or a social capital that would also get to advocate for your work. So it might be difficult many a times to try to, you know, navigate the job market on your own, or trying to enter into positions that have predominantly been held by men. So it's important for you to actually seek support through coaching and mentoring, and make sure that you receive the feedback that you have been given and you work on that feedback as well, so that you can be able, you know, to overcome some of the challenges. So never assume that you are going to make it on your own. You somehow need people that are already in the industry, that have already been in the path, that they can actually help you to actually pave a way in the industry that you want to get into.
Thank you, Ms. Dunster. Stay with us. It's time for a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this discussion with Ms. Bonille Dunster. We will also have in studio Audrey Taylor, Chief of Academy at the Executive Leadership Council here in Washington, D.C., an organization that promotes minorities into executive positions. They will both help us find the solutions as well as do's and don'ts for women once they secure a professional job. As usual, we want to remind you to share your thoughts on this topic as well, on tips, on our social media platform at VOA Africa. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter, at VOA Africa. Don't forget to use the hashtag VOA Our Voices. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
Welcome back. You're tuned into Our Voices. We're discussing how to overcome the challenges to securing corporate jobs for women and how to excel in once you're in. Well, still with us on Skype from South Africa is Boniwe Dunster. Now we're also here in studio with Audrey Taylor, Chief Officer at the ELC Academy, a leadership development program at the Executive Leadership Council, an independent nonprofit organization that promotes inclusive leadership into corporate business sector, especially for minorities. Mrs. Taylor, welcome to Our Voices.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you so much
you.
for being with us. Now, we're going to dive right into our conversation today. Well, according to Lean In and McKinsey Incorporation in 2020, the state of Black women in corporate America reports indicate that they have the worst experience of all work, and that this manifests in being underpaid, being underrepresented in leadership roles, and experiencing discrimination amongst other obstacles. In your experience, is there a light at the end of the tunnel at some point soon?
Soon. That's a loaded word. I mean, you know, progress has been made, but the numbers are still so small. I talk about this all the time. I was actually at a reunion with some business school classmates about 2 weeks ago, and I had showed them some data actually from one of my former employers, Catalyst, where we were tracking the percentage of female CEOs, for example, in the Fortune 500. And you look at that, and in 40, 50 years, we're still basically in single digits. Like now it's at 10%, but that's just really recently. And that's all women.
Wow.
So when we start talking about Black women, we're down in the single digits. And one resignation, like the resignation recently at CVS, that's a material hit to the metrics. So we have a long way to go. I think soon is maybe a little optimistic.
Wow.
Yeah, I think one of those factors could be, discrimination. In order to climb up in the corporate ladder, women face a lot of discrimination. For example, it could be promotion. Women could be stuck in one position without getting promoted just because they are women. So how do they bypass such kind of obstacles?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a big one. It's true. And you see it in the data. Women end up in roles longer before they get promoted, and that's women of every ethnicity. And I think that data, anyone who tracks that across the globe, we see that. So what do you do about it? You talked about this actually before the break with the other guest around just going for it when you're thinking about positions. So just being bold about your career, trying to take charge of your career, finding not only mentorship, but especially if you're aiming at the executive roles, sponsorship. It's a big difference, right? Mentorship is advice. Sponsorship is someone that is going to go and talk for you.
Wow. We're going to come back to Boniwe as well in a minute. But before we continue our conversation, we're going to go.
Yeah, let's hear from some women on the ground in Nairobi, Kenya, about the challenge they face and some of the solutions they propose. We have Diana Nduge, Irene Ndugua, and Monica Mithoni in Your Voice segment.
Women go through many challenges when looking for employment. For example, they may be harassed, they may be discriminated. Like you want a job from a certain company, and the person to employ you wants maybe you to sleep with him or her. Yeah, so that you can get that chance in that company. Maybe government should create more job opportunities and people should have trustworthy. Like if I come to your company, there is no need of telling me to do 1, 2, 3 so that I can get that particular job.
Lack of skills. There's competition from people who are more skilled. Of course, people have been in the industry for longer years. There's also long application processes. There's also frauds. You find the websites that you're applying to, they're not really legit. First, I believe women should be encouraged and be given a seat at the table to say what they want. They should also remove biasness in the working industry. Let there be equal opportunities, and if it is salaries, let them have the same as the men also. Encourage women to leadership as well. I believe women can be great leaders.
One, I would say discrimination. Another one, sexual harassment, and probably corruption. Of discrimination, we should all be treated equally. Men and women should always be treated equally, because I believe what a man can do, even also a woman can be able to do it, and maybe even do it much better than the man. Also, in terms of ethnic, we should all be the same in terms of ethnic. We should always consider each and every one of us as anyone who is unemployed, and everybody needs this job, whether it doesn't matter where you come from. So we should always have that in mind, that everybody is up to the task.
Ms. Taylor, you mentioned earlier, so women are staying longer in a position. Is there a common mistake that women make that prevents them from going up the ladder?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one, and again, you all spoke about it before, is the propensities for us to really speak up for ourselves and go for that position. But the issues are really systemic. So there are things that we need to do as women, but there are also things that leaders and organizations need to do to actually help create that environment that works for everybody. Because, you know, why do you want to waste 50% of the talent in the world, right?
Exactly.
You want everyone to be able to contribute and thrive at an organization. And so there really is a business case. I mean, we use that quote a little bit too much, but it's quite clear that there are so many benefits to making sure that the women in your organization can actually perform to their best, can be engaged, and can advance. So I believe it's a joint responsibility.
So it's a systemic issue, which, you know, could be a bit tough. But let me bring in Ms. Dunster once again. When we talk about trying to do our part, many women feel like they need to go back to school. Is an MBA a must for the corporate world on the continent or in South Africa? And then I'll ask the same question to Ms. Taylor as well. Is an MBA really a must? Is it worth it going back to school for that in order to position yourself not to be discriminated against?
Sure. So an MBA is not necessarily a must, but it does actually help candidates to actually open doors for them, bearing in mind that it is a business degree or a generalist degree. So it does actually help. However, experience still remains important. And we actually see in Africa that a lot of women get a lot of qualifications to advance themselves, to compete with their male counterparts who don't even have half the experience or half the qualifications that they have. It helps you to actually build your social capital, because when you're attending an MBA class, you are in a class with people that are already in high positions, people that are already owning their businesses, people that are entrepreneurs, and that can actually then help you to advance yourself. So you shouldn't look at it in one-dimensional, in a sense that it will only help you to get a job in corporate, but also look at it in terms of what other opportunities it can afford you in terms of growing, which networks you will be able to build in that class. However, we still see a high uptake in Africa, and I know also in South Africa with people doing an MBA, because there is a belief that it will help you to advance your career. It does, but it's not necessarily a must, because at the end of the day, you know, there are other management qualifications, there are other people that are promoted to senior positions without necessarily having an MBA, let alone in any other form of a master's degree.
Okay, let's go in the diaspora here in the U.S. especially. What do you think, Ms. Taylor?
Yeah, I think she hit it right on the head. It can be really helpful. I went and got one. I was an engineer by training, and I wanted to have more control. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to manage. And so I went ahead and got an MBA because I wanted to learn those things. I actually wasn't aware of the networking benefits. You know, if I went back again, I'd do even some more things. So yes, it can be helpful. Is it required? No. So I think it's a real personal decision. If you're at a point in your career where you want to take that stop out, an MBA generally takes 2 years, so it's not a long, long time, you know, go ahead and go for it, but don't feel like it's the magic ball that's going to solve everything, right?
So when do you think it's the right time to take legal steps, when you feel stuck or when you are being discriminated, or what tools are available for women to tap into when they want to push, you know, themselves in the ladder?
Oh, wow. Well, the legal aspect, that's interesting because context is everything, right? You know, you've been talking a lot about sexual harassment and gender bias, and the way that an individual woman is going to react to that is so dependent on where they are. What country are they in? What are the legal frameworks in that country? What are the social norms in that country? Because, you know, some folks want to be the standard bearer and get out there, and I admire women like that, right, who really push and fight when they see that kind of discrimination.
And they could
but
even
that fight comes with
it
comes with a risk. So that's something that I think every woman has to weigh for themselves, taking into account the context of their organization. But if they really are having things that they think are, you know, illegal, then get that advice and go from there.
Wow. Is there any quick advice for maybe sexual harassment situations?
Oh man, that, like I said, it's tough. It really is a personal decision. You have to decide your risk tolerance. Do you have other options? Because for me personally, I don't want to be in a workplace where that kind of behavior is tolerated, so I'm going to vote with my feet. But not every woman has all of those options, so it's such a personal decision.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wow, Ms. Dunster, let me just bring her in terms of on the continent, how they deal with that. What about the sexual harassment situation? I mean, you incorporate, you're doing well, but yet that is happening. What is your advice? What do you advise women?
I think for me, it's very important for individuals to understand their local legislation and how it works and how it really protects them. But it's important for you to also keep the evidence that's going to help you, especially if you want to advance a sexual harassment case internally. Also understand your organizational policies and processes as well. Similarly to what Ms. Taylor has indicated around, you know, what is the context. But I know.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dunster. Time is not on our side, but thank you so much. This is our show for today. We want to thank our guest, Mrs. Boniwe Dunster, founder and director of Blue Eagle Human Capital Practices, LLC, for joining us via Skype from South Africa. And of course, Mrs. Audrey Taylor, here in studio, chief of the Leadership Academy at the Executive Leadership Council. Be sure to go to our website for VOA at voaafrica.com.